And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Another Tuesday night chat with the Muskrat. It's hard not to say in Creole catfishing. Man, I miss him already. I miss him already. I'm sure he's missing us too right now. He probably feels naked. It's Tuesday night at 8:00, and he ain't sitting at his computer somewhere. But tonight we're joined by none other than Mr. Ted Ellenbecker. Ted, thanks for taking the time to hang out with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We are really excited about tonight's show. Ted's been on the show. I think you've only been on the show once before, right? Or maybe it was twice.
I think once, Roger.
I think once before.
Yeah,
I got you.
I think so.
But Ted's known all over the country for the information that he's put out. Seminars that he hosts and does, in person, and now also he's starting to be able to broadcast some of these through YouTube. Plus, he's got DVDs. Where's mine? I just went down. Oh, here they are. I mean, we got the guy right there who makes the DVDs.
Yeah,
You go on Amazon if you can't get enough information here. You can go to Amazon and pick up one of those DVDs. Sorry, I didn't tell you I had those to put you on spot.
That's okay.
We promise we're not doing an infomercial here, but because we're going to give away information for free tonight.
That's right. Yep.
So have your pen and pencil paper ready. So tonight's format is going to be a little bit different, right? So Ted is used to doing seminars, which he has put together a great presentation. He's got a PowerPoint presentation, slides. He is a real deal. But during the seminars that he hosts, you're going to have Ted would be most likely presenting the information for the period of the seminar. And then at the end, there's time for questions and answers. Between the time it takes us to get started and the time we finish up, we may or may not have time for to answer questions, or at least all of them. So what we're going to do is next week's show, we're going to go back, and any questions you guys have, you're more than welcome to drop them in chat. And I'm going to go back this week and get all those questions and have them ready for next week. Or you can hold off until next week if you want and join the show and ask the questions right there. But either way, that's kind of how we plan on formatting this. And if you guys are cool with it, Ted has actually got 3 different seminars that he's prepared. And Ted, if you're willing to do all 3 of them, we'll watch them all.
I'd be happy to. The whole point of it's to give out information. So
yeah,
whatever you need. Yeah.
So one of the DVDs there I had was the shallow water channel cats, and channel cats are a blast. A lot of us absolutely love catching channel cats, and I'm sure wherever you are in the country, I think channel cat is the only species of catfish you can find in about every water. Is that right, Ted?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So some places won't have flatheads and some places won't have blues, but almost everybody can get on channel cat. So he's got a seminar just for channel cat fishing, and so I'm looking forward to that as well. But before I eat up any more of our time here, I'm going to run back and say hello real quick to some folks. We've already got 35 people tuned in so far. We got John Boys out there. Sampy's in the house. What's going on, buddy? Thanks for tuning in. Minnow Dunkers, Tommy Long, he's fishing while he's listening. So he keeps us on his phone while he fishes. And so thanks for tuning in with us. Catch Fish with us. Local favorites of mine here. And they are no stranger to channel cat fishing either. They love to go up Sandusky Bay. And there's V of Catch Fish with us. Up in the air run, what's going on, buddy? Mike Greenwell's in the house. Crappy Day Fish On. Dustin Clark. Eddie with River Junkies is here. What's going on, buddy? Don Knight is here as well. 3 nights. Wabash Nate. There's Paul Edmonston, my buddy. There's my fellow river brother saying Semper Fi. What's up, Zach? Braden D. Braden's in the house. Muskrat, I got my plaque. All right, man. I'm glad you got it. And they should have had other goodies there as well. Bugman 22 in the house. Mike Irvin. David Funk's in the house. What's up, Dave Funk? Dave Funk got on a really good flathead this last week. Good to see him out. He's consistent, man. He puts a lot of time in the water, and it pays off. Steve Ransom's in the house. What's going on? There's my brother Matt, Stonefly71. Welcome to the chat tonight, buddy. Greg Burgess. Woo-wee. I'm trying it. We got Shad Daddy in the house. What's up, buddy? There's Mr. Kelly Bullock, our behind the scenes videographer. There we go. I'm going to have you make us a new intro, man. It was rough not rolling the one with me and Creole together. Ed Jenkins is in the house. What's up, Ed? Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. Bobcat's here as well. Garden Princess, my sister's here. Hey, Miranda Lynn. Her birthday was last Tuesday. My brother's birthday is today. And there's my dad. Your old man is tuned in as well. So check it out. We got the whole family. Well, my brother, he might be out fishing or playing right now. Jeff Wallace is in here. Hope to see you at the Jack and Jill tournament Saturday. I'm hoping maybe to be there, but my mom has surgery on Friday, and it's really just going to totally depend on how well she's doing. I've got a backup plan for Saturday. Actually, Jackie's going to fish with Zach without me. If mom needs me there, I'll be there. But if all is well, then I will be at that tournament. So we'll just have to wait and see how things go with Mama. And Miranda says that Mom is here too, so she's listening to all this. Let's see. Fishing with Jeff Beals in the house. Josh Thompson, and looks like I'm caught up. Mr. Greg Burgess as the last one I see. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. 40-some folks already. We're racking up the numbers. Benoit Fishing, seeing you come in. Thank you guys for being here. But I'm going to not try to interrupt. I might throw your name up at the bottom of the screen to let you know I see you, and I appreciate you being here. But we're going to go ahead and get things started. What do you say, Ted?
That'd be fine. Let's do her.
Let's get her done.
You bet.
So the first thing I want to show you guys is this picture right here. And Ted, could you explain to everybody what we're looking at in this photo?
Yeah, I don't normally do this, but with this seminar, this is very relevant. This is just a picture of some, world record catches, line class world records. And I'm not showing this to brag. There's a reason for it. The Any Fish, Any Water videos, seminars, the Theory of Three were all developed doing this. How it kind of came about, I got tied up catching some line class records, and it was a lot of fun. You don't make any money doing it, but it's just fun. And after a while, I don't have a lot of extra money or a lot of extra time. I really can't afford to go out and have it take, 4 trips to catch a particular fish. Plus I like to catch fish more than that. So right. I started developing a way to locate fish. And Any Fish, Any Water, that's a big claim, but I'm going to tell you what, by the end of the seminar, you're going to understand. You can use this information to locate any species of freshwater fish on any water if you practice it. Now, don't misunderstand that. This isn't a magic wand. It's not a miracle lure. What it is common sense. Maybe common sense on a few steroids, but common sense. Okay? And fishing is a numbers game. So, with that, that's why this is here. This information wasn't developed drinking coffee with the guys over at the poker table. This was on the water over a period of 10 to 12 years. So it has some credibility. It has a huge number of fish and some quality fish to its credit. And most of the people that do listen to this seminar have come back and told me, the last time I was on the water after that, I don't look at my body of water the same way. And that's what I like to hear. And you won't. So, Roger, let's go to the seminar.
All right, let me get this out of there, and we'll pull up the good stuff. All right, here, give me just a second. And 3. Here we go.
All right, this is the Any Fish, Any Water seminar. It uses the Theory of Three to locate fish, as I explained before. And the importance of this comes down to a couple of things. Number one, Fishing is numbers, and I'm going to explain that to you. Number two, the only absolute in fishing is if the fish can locate your hook, bait, or lure. If they can't, obviously you won't get bit, you can't get bit. The third one, okay, if you practice, if you use knowledge, if you use information, that is the most valuable tool in your tackle box. And I'm going to give you a straight up example about it. It might cause a little heat here, but I don't mean to. It comes to electronics, okay, and I'm just going to explain it real simple. If you walk down to the dock, walk up to your boat, and you say, boat, go find me fish. Will it? No. If you turn on your depth finder, say, go find me fish. Will it? No. The only thing electronics does is work as a tool for you. The only thing electronics, depth finders, sonars can do is show you what you point your transducer at. Okay? So the more information you have that enables you to locate more fish, obviously, you know, the sonar is going to tell you that. Now, I mentioned numbers. I'm going to go back to it real quick, and then we'll get into the heavy part of this. When I'm talking numbers, you know, there's things in fishing that you can't control. You can't control weather. You can't control water levels. You can't control temperatures, a lot of things, okay? You can't control pressure on the body of water. So on certain days, because of those situations, let's just say 1 out of 10 fish may be willing to bite your offering, okay? May be willing to take your bait. If that's the case, obviously, if you present to 10 fish, you have the opportunity potentially to catch 1 fish. 100 fish, you have the opportunity potentially, right, to catch 10 fish. So the focus on this is to present to fish. And one suggestion right up front, if people would focus more on presenting to fish, worry more about that and less about catching, you'd be surprised. The presenting will make the catches for you. And that's what this stuff is about. Locating structures that are going to consistently, and that's a key word in here, consistently attract fish. Okay? Next. To start with, there you go. To start with, let me ask everybody 3 questions just to get her going. And if you've done much fishing, you're going to understand this. Let's just say you're out fishing today and the bite's a little slow. They got a little lockjaw. You had plans, you know, it didn't work out. You get back to your car and you look at your fishing buddy or your dog or your wife or whoever you're fishing with, and you go, what if? What if I had? What if I did? What if I went? Man, I used to do that and I hate it. If you follow this strategy, you'll understand you don't have to say that again. You can't control how many bites are going to happen, but you can always say you did it right, and that's important. The second example of this, you're out in the water, you've done what you, I got a fly bugging me here. You get out in the water and you've done what you planned on doing. Nothing happened, and you look at your guy, and you've all done this if you fish much. You go, now what? Got any ideas? You haven't found the fish. Now what do we do? This information, that by the end of this, you're going to understand what you're supposed to do. And the third one, what about your prep? Now, I don't mean prep looking at your tackle box, okay, or checking your line or your rod, or, you know, I don't count that. I'm talking about your prep prior to your trip. You know, like say I'm going fishing Saturday. Wednesday, I'm going to start my trip. And I enjoy it. It just gives me more time to get into the trip. I start gathering information, and there's things you have to know if you want to have a successful trip. Obviously, what species? Okay, what lake? All of that, you got to have that planned, obviously. But what do you want out of the trip? Do you want a couple fryers? Do you want to just sit on a bucket with your boots in the mud? Do you want a trophy? All of them are fine. But you have to pick a body of water that can give you what you're looking for. A lot of people don't look at this stuff, okay? Call your game departments. Believe it or not, they will talk to you about the bite. Okay, call your fishing buddies, call the bait shops in the area that you're going to fish, not the ones in your town if you're traveling 100 miles. Okay, you need to prepare, because the decisions you make on the water are what are going to dictate if you're successful or not for the day. Okay, go on. All right, so needless to say, everything we said so far, you are the foundation for your success, right? You're the one making the decisions, driving the boat, pointing the sonar, picking the bait, rod, reel, all of that. You're in charge. Decisions are important, you know, and you got to put yourself first. And I'm going to give you an example of what happens when that doesn't happen, okay? When you put equipment, regardless of what kind, electronics or whatever, if you put it ahead of you, the wrong thing's going to happen. I was up Lake Vermilion, northern Minnesota, a couple years ago, fishing muskie. I hadn't been on the lake fishing muskie before, so I hired a guide for 4 hours in the morning, and that's fine. He's a nice guy, great thing, but he had some of the new equipment, you know, where he could see the fish out and follow the lure and all this and that, and that's wonderful. It is very cool. Don't get me wrong, but he forgot something, you know. We went out, the first place we stopped, Vermilion Lake has 365 islands on it. And there's this big south wind. We had wind coming between the islands creating current, which is a good thing, obviously, we know that. And the very first place we stopped was 2 islands about maybe 150 feet apart, some wind coming through it, creating a wash around the corners, you know. And we spotted a big fish. Could have been a muskie, could have been a northern, we don't know. And we cast to it a couple times. We didn't catch the fish, but we could watch the lure, and we saw the fish turn and follow and the whole thing, and it was very cool. It was. But we left there, and we went to points, and we went to weed beds, we went to humps, we went to bay mouths, we sonared everything in that lake, except he never went back to the islands. Now, think about that. He was thinking his equipment was going to find him fish, and he forgot where the fish were. I mean, you don't do that. You have to use what the water's telling you. In this case, we should have gone right back to the islands, okay, and started looking for those shoulders with currents coming around them, I think, my opinion, and we didn't do it. You need to understand the species that you're fishing for. And I don't just mean I'm going to go catfishing. If you're going catfishing, great. But are you targeting the blues? Are you targeting the flatheads? Are you targeting the channel cats? Now, you know, yes, you can interchange. You can catch either or when you're fishing. But if you're going to target, like I want to catch trophy flatheads, then I need to target that. I need to pick the water for that. I need to pick the bait for that and the equipment to match the type of structures I'm going to fish. There's a lot involved. Okay. Another example of that. A lot of the records we set are 2-pound line class records with 20 to 25 pound fish. You cannot do that on log jams. You have to pick different elements, and elements is going to be the key. I can say any fish, any water for 2 reasons on this. First off, each species has its own preferences. In any body of water, each species will pick its own forage. That's up to you to know what it is. It also pick the elements it wants to locate on. Okay? And that's where you need to do some homework if you don't already know. Each species will pick the elements and the forage. You need to understand, here's the biggie, this is where all of this information will come together. You need to understand why some structures hold fish, keyword, consistently, and some don't. And the reason I say consistently is because I can go on a body of water, if I've pre-fished it or if I've been there before, if I have 4 high-powered elements, I can fish those 4 all day. I can fish the 4 in the morning for the first 4 hours. I can go back in the afternoon if the fish have moved, and you're going to say, well, why would they still be there? Because of the type of structure you're looking for. That's going to be explained. If the fish aren't there in the morning, they'll be there in the afternoon. If they aren't there in the afternoon, they'll be there at night. They will show on these structures. You just need to go back and forth. Okay? You need to start everything with you. And if you notice, everything I just talked about is you. It's not a rod and reel. It's not a hook. It's not a bait. It's you. This is all you. Okay? Roger, can we go to the next one? Thank you. Okay, now information to be valuable to you, and hopefully this will all be valuable to you, has to have a purpose. In other words, it has to have something it does for you, right? Well, these structures are going to collect fish for you consistently. And it has to make sense. Okay, because if it doesn't make sense to you, you're not going to use it. You're going to forget it. As soon as we shut off these computers, you're going to forget it if it doesn't make sense. If it makes sense, even if you don't believe it, you're going to think about it the next time you're on the water. Okay? And by the way, everything I tell you tonight, you don't have to do. You can break it down into certain parts. But the more you do, the better it works, obviously, just like anything. Now, we're going to, well, I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit here. We're going to kind of redefine structure a little bit because, quite honestly, that's the foundation of this, and it's also the foundation of your fishing. And I'll stick it out a little further. The two definitions of structure that people have used for the last 80 years, 60 years, well, 75 years actually, in my opinion, are incomplete or inaccurate. And that's just the way it is. It was two fishermen, one in the 50s, came up, you know, somebody asked him, write an article, what's structure? And he said, well, if it's connected to the bottom, it's structure. Well, if that's the case, why doesn't anybody use that today when they're discussing structure? You know, and I'm going to go into detail with this. The next one, 10 years later, was a saltwater angler. And he said, if it's a change in the bottom, that's structure. Well, no, it's not. It's a change in the bottom. We're going to get into it. There's a few definitions of structure. We just talked about them. You know, the real definition of structure, the understanding of structure, is when you put elements in a given body of water together to create something, just like a house. Let's say I take my house and I look at it. I have windows, I have doors, I have a basement, I have a roof, I have bedrooms, I have a garage. Okay. Now, if I took a window out, okay, now this is structure, right? If you ask somebody, is this house a structure? Well, of course it is. If I took a window out and I laid it out in the field, and I walked up and said, what's that? Would you say it's a structure? Of course not. You'd say it's a window, right? Structures have no boundaries in content or size. They do change. And I'm going to make this so everybody understands, like say you drift or you bottom bounce or, you know, or you bump, okay, whatever, or you pull plugs or whatever, for whatever species, or you do slip bobbers, you know, or stillfish, you're going to want different types of structures. But don't limit yourself. If you have, we'll say, 2 miles of riprap, okay, that's a big element, but in 2 miles it's going to connect to something else, and we're going to get into that. Okay, go on, next one. And we're just going to prove it here a little bit. On your left, you know, and there's no trick question here. Just to kind of go into what we just talked about. On the left, and I'll give you a hint though, I picked it out of my rock garden. And I would bet money if anybody was asked, yeah, you know, what is that? They're going to go, it's a rock. Okay, if it was laying on the bottom of the river, would you say that's a structure? Of course not. It's not, it's a rock. Same thing with the stick. Fell out of one of my trees. You would say it's a stick. If it was laying on the bottom, would it collect fish? No, of course not. Elements have powers. And this is, some elements are very weak, some elements are incredibly strong, and I'll give you an example of what a power is. We'll go on to the next one, Roger. Okay. There's 3 ways that elements collect power. Okay. One way is size. In other words, if this stick was laying on the bottom, it's a wood element. If it was laying on the bottom of the lake, would you look at that and say that'd collect fish? No. But if that was a 30-foot cottonwood, it's a wood element. Would you say that would collect fish? Yes, it would, of course. It has the power to do that. But that cottonwood by itself, will it collect fish basically all year? No. Reason? Elements do different things, obviously. Depth gives fish one thing, weeds give fish one thing, rocks give fish another thing, okay? Cover gives fish another thing. And here's where the theory of three comes in. Obviously the rock, no, that wouldn't have any power either. But if that was a pile of rocks the size of a Volkswagen, it certainly would. So you have a weak rock element, you have a high-powered rock element. The two other ways that elements collect power besides size and mass, okay, are the relationship to another element. It's like if I had this tree, this 30-foot cottonwood, and it was laying over a rock pile or a rock hump, now you have a connection of two powerful elements. And those elements will do different things, different time of day for different fish, right? Now, if you connect the third element, like let's just say at the base of that tree, there's a weed bed, or on the top of the rock hump, there's weed growth. Now you've got three elements that supply three different things to those fish. If they all have enough power, that will always hold fish. Maybe not the species you're looking for at this time, but later possibly, or tomorrow. You see what I mean? But it will always hold fish because of what it offers. Okay, and different elements offer different things. So that's just kind of the way it is. So what's a structure? It's not a hump, it's not just something laying on the bottom. It's not something connected to the bottom. What is it? It's the combination of elements like these, okay, the relationship of them that has the consistency to control, that has the ability to completely and always hold fish, okay, at some point in the day. It's not a rock or a piece of grass or a stick. Okay, go to the next one, Raj. All right. Structure is a combination, like I said, a relationship of elements in a given body of water that's capable of concentrating and holding fish. Obviously, all structures aren't created equal. What makes a great fishing structure? Well, there's four elements in a body of water. These pictures here show kind of examples of what just elements are, okay? Now you got to remember that any body of water has four types, not kinds of elements, but four types of elements, and some are more beneficial to you than others. But like the top picture here, you've got current, you've got a feeding platform up by that rock sitting there, you've got some quiet water, you've got a current line, you've got a dugout hole in the bottom, you've got all kinds of elements, and all of these are elements. The sun is an element, light, darkness, wind is an element. We all know wind affects fish. Current is a very strong positioner of fish, okay? Now on the bottom picture, this is a really strong, high-powered element out on the Missouri River. We've got like a rock hump, and this rock hump extends to the right to the edge of the channel. Then you've got a great big rock point out behind it. That's about 150 yards past this little island here. And it drops right into the channel again. Now between them, I don't know if you can see it very well on your computer, but in between these, there's a feeding platform. That flat in between those starts out at about 15 feet and obviously goes back to the shoreline. Every small fish, bait fish in the world at one point or another comes up to that feeding platform during the day. So in this structure by itself, you have a rock hump, you have a channel, you have, you've got a point, you've got rock, you've got river channels, you've got feeding platforms, you've got everything going on. And the biggest mistake that fishermen make when they get into a good structure like this, they've already dictated where they're going to fish. Okay, like this guy likes rock piles, so he's going to pull up to the rock pile and he's going to fish it. He's going to make his presentation. and then he's going to leave because he wants another rock pile. Or you got a guy that's running the river channel, but he's not going to present to the rock pile or the point. Well, here's the problem. You just stopped at a structure, okay, that has 3 great, powerful elements that will concentrate. Each one can hold fish. Together, they will concentrate and hold fish. You just fished one element and you left. You just walked out on 66% of your potential bites because you didn't try the other elements in there. Now, once you find where the fish are, like say they are on the rock island, well, then you've pretty well eliminated stuff. Then you're going to want to look for structures with the rock humps in them, because if the fish are holding on that, perfect, go find them. But until you know that, which would you rather do? Would you rather present to more elements on this structure, or spending half an hour running around trying to find another structure that's just as good when you don't know what they're sitting on anyway? You know, and that's where most people make a mistake. And an example of that was up in Canada on Caliper Lake. We were at a little resort and we were fishing northern pike, which this isn't a northern pike show, but it's a great example. And we went out in a boat, and there's a little bay just to the west of the resort. It started out back at the back end of the bay, shallow lily pads. They came out along the west shore and eventually broke into bulrushes. But these bulrushes ran for about 150 yards, and they all stopped at 4 foot off of the shoreline, all the way down. Okay, there's 2 boats ahead of us. They went through, and we're watching. We're filming on that. That's part of a video we did. We were filming on it. We were watching them. They didn't have a bite. They threw at the bulrushes. They didn't throw at anything else. We went in, we threw at the lily pads. We got nothing. We threw at the bulrushes. We got nothing. Then we lined up on the bulrushes. We cast parallel to the bulrushes with a deep diver. Right at the edge of those bulrushes, where it stopped 4 feet off the shore, is a drop into 8 feet of water. We made 2 casts and had a 9 and a 10-pound northern. And those 2 boats went right over them. They never tried the drop. Okay, that's just an example. And that's like when you're catfishing up on the Red River. We were fishing tournaments up there when Stu Mackay was running cats on the Red. You know, there's guys that they'd pull up on the channel, and right off to the side, they've got where it comes up into shallow flats and then drops into the main channel. And the guys that were catching fish were putting baits in the main channel and one up on the flat. You know, and guys that weren't catching fish were just fishing the main channel. Another example. So anyway, you need to break down your water, and here's where you got to do some work on this. I can't do it for you. Yep, that's fine. I don't know your water. I don't fish your water, you know. You need to know the elements in the body of water that the species you're looking for is using, okay? You know, as an example, well, northerns may use bulrushes and weed beds, you know. You're going to get smallmouth bass are going to prefer rock humps. You're going to get channel cats that are going to be usually 12 to 15 feet shallower than the blue cats. You got flatheads that will go up into 2-3 foot of water if the structure's proper. You know, in the middle of the day, we've caught 40, 45 pound flats in 3 foot of water, 80 degrees and sunny. As long as you bump it on their nose, they'll hit it. Okay. Each fish has a preference. You need to know what elements in that body of water your fish are using. And obviously I can't tell you that. Okay, we already went through some of the power on elements, but there's one thing about elements that a lot of people don't even think about, and that's age. You know, you can take a tree that just, say you got a big cottonwood. We've had a lot of high water up here. We got some green trees in the water up here now in the rivers. Still got leaves on them. Those trees are not part of the river. The water has not had time to work. You know, you got green. I'm not saying a fish won't stop there. You might have a fish stop there. But when a tree like that's been in the water for a year, 2 years, 3 years, the current's done some amazing things. It's done cutouts underneath there. You know, you have fish using it. You've had fish that have spawned in there. You've got cutouts under the bank. You've got pile up. You've got other debris that has built up against it, creating current breaks. It is now a house. And if If you can connect that, let's say you have it connected to the bank. By the way, the bank on a river is the biggest element there is in the river. I mean, it continues forever. If you can connect it to a bank, you get a cutout. If the other end can connect to the channel, man, you've got a fish magnet. Even with pressure, you would be surprised. The movement of the fish during the day, or the lack of movement, can create a whole different thing in an hour or two, and I know you guys already know that. So fishing pressure sometimes is a bad thing, sometimes doesn't make any difference if you know something a little more than they know. There's 4 types of elements, just like I said. We're going to go through those. This may seem a little redundant, but the more you know about it, the better. It's just kind of the way it is. We're kind of rebuilding structure here tonight. The first element on any body of water is an inherent element. An inherent element is what makes up the water. Okay, it's the water, it's the bottom, terra firma, and it's the air. Every body of water obviously has those, or it wouldn't exist. But unless those elements are connected to something else, they don't help you. And I'll give you an example of that. If you had, let's just say you have a frying pan out there. It's 4 feet deep for whatever, 2 miles square, nothing else in it. The sun is stable, the temperature's stable, there's no wind. Where are the fish going to stage? Nowhere. They're just going to float around, right? You start adding different elements and the fish will start congregating. That's kind of the thing. So these elements obviously are the biggest ones on a body of water, but you need something to help out. We'll get into that a little bit. Some of these structures just show some elements. We've got in the center, you've got a small river with some riprap on it, concrete slabs coming around a corner, outside bend, a current line. It's a very small structure, but we've caught several fish off of it. We don't spend a lot of time there because of the size, but we do visit it when we're there, and we normally catch fish. Top left, you've got a log jam, some dead trees, and this tree's old. It's not laying down, but half the bark's off on it. It's been there about 2 years. It's connected to the bank. There is a cutout up against that bank. It's not quite connected to the channel, but it's on an outside bend. It's just a good one to look at. I showed you the one bottom left with the rock pile, the points. Now, down bottom right, if you can see it, you've got some old railroad posts sticking up. Up above it, there's a bunch of rock, riprap. That's kind of a low head dam. So this structure right here has some old wood, man-made, but old wood. It's got a lot of riprap. It has current lines. It has a dugout hole. It's just catfish heaven. Lots of pressure, but if you go after them, it works really well. Top right, that'll be the next structure or next element. I'm going to get to that real quick. You go to the next one, sir. Yep. Okay, the second kind of element is a cluster element, and everybody's seen them. Lots of different kinds. You can have, a row of, say, 6 or 8 wing dikes. You can have 2 miles of riprap. You can have, like this, a back bay full of standing timber. In northern lakes or wherever, whatever other type of water, you can have big weed beds. You can have bulrush bays that are full. It's an element that covers a lot of ground. It has a lot of power, but there's a problem with a cluster element when it's by itself. It will hold fish, but a concentrate fish, no, it won't do it. And the reason is, it's just like I talked about the big frying pan where everything's the same. But if you take a cluster element like this and you add something, we'll just say this one with the standing timber in a bay, if you add an old roadbed through it, or there happens to be an old stock dam in there because this is flooded water, or it has a drop or connection to a weed line or an old roadbed or whatever, old house sitting in there, now there's your connection. Okay, now the fish that are using this cluster element will focus on those connecting points. Okay, and when I talk about presenting to each element, that's a serious thing. It does 2 things for you. Number 1, it puts you in contact with more fish. And number 2, it will tell you what the fish are using for that day. If you can connect where the two elements are hooked up. Okay, if the tree drops over the channel, if you fish where the tree and the channel are, as an example, you have access to both the channel and the tree, and you're going to find out real quick where the fish are. If they're liking the shallow up on the one end of the tree, you're going to find out. If they want that channel, you're going to find out real quick. Whereas if you're just fishing one or the other, like I talked about before, and you leave, you just walked out on your potential bites. And we'll move on, Raj. Common elements. This is where you need to know your water. The common element can be anything, and it changes with every body of water, just like some lakes have docks, some lakes don't have docks. Some lakes have weed beds, some don't. Some rivers have, riprap, wing dams, some don't. You need to know that. And a common element can hold fish like this log jam, but again, how powerful is it? Do you want to spend time here, or do you want to go to a better element? I would prefer, this is on a shallow area. It looks like it has a steep bank, but it's silted in. This does not connect to a channel. It connects to the bank. There's very little, if any, current here. So it's missing elements to position fish. Might have one hanging out here, but I wouldn't spend time here. If it had connection to the channel on the end, had current button up on the face of it, and a dugout on the channel side or on the bank side, more build up in the front, okay, then you want to spend more time there. And I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You need to look at what's in front of you too on an element or structure. And I'm going to kind of go through this. This is a good one to show. If you look right in the middle of this, there's kind of that white spot. There's a break in it there. Actually, there is a break in that entire structure right there. And any fish that are holding to the back side of that, which you would need a current to have them do that, which you don't here, but they would come through this off the bank and come up in the front. I would position one in front of that break, and I'd position one on the outside towards the inside of the river on the end of that log, if there were current. This is an old picture. Frankly, I really wouldn't stop there anymore, just because. Okay, common elements. They need to have power, and to be valuable to you, you need to have more connection. Just like the docks. Some docks, that's fine. Some people's docks, they put Christmas trees under them. They do all kinds of things. They have boat lifts, all kinds of stuff that attracts fish, weed beds, everything else. Some people even chum off them, okay? If you have a plain dock with nothing, it's not going to do you much. High percentage elements. This is number 4. And this is what you want. And we've already pretty much covered this. You want 3 high percentage elements on a structure. And I'm going to have a hard time explaining why 3. It's hard to tell, but it's a fact. 3 works the best. 2 is not enough. 4 is too many. 4 has a tendency, 4 big elements has a tendency to separate the fish, to spread them out a little bit. 3 seems to focus them on one or the other element. And 2, if it's a good body of water, 2 will not hold them. The big fish will migrate to one with 3. It's just the way it is. Now, let me explain this because I don't know your body of water, so I'm going to be transparent here. Depending on your body of water, you could have a body of water with 2 high-powered elements on a structure that are great. If that body of water doesn't have a tremendous amount of elements in it, or high-powered elements, one with 2 high-powered elements may be great. It depends on the body of water. On a lot of the waters I fish, I got to have 3 really strong elements to hold fish, because there's a lot of other, subservient elements, if you will, just don't quite have the power. Anyway, and 3, it seems like the human brain works with 3, and I'm not sure why that is. I mean, you got like the Holy Trinity, you got 3 strikes, you're out, give me 3 steps. Everybody uses 3, and I'm not sure why that is. But I've tested this with this, and 3 is the number that works the best. Other numbers will work, obviously, nothing's an absolute in it, but 3. If you can hold together four to six outstanding structures on your body of water, you're going to catch fish. That's just the way it is. 3 high percentage elements is the key. We just went through this, you need to present to all 3 elements on a body of water. You just do. If you don't, you're giving up, like I said, 66% of potential bites. And man, I'd rather have my bait in the water than run around looking for another spot. I mean, that's just the way it is. If I stopped at this, like this structure, if I stopped here because I thought there was fish here. Well, I'll be honest, I kind of trust my judgment. If I stop there, there probably are fish there, but I don't know where they are. They could be in the channel, they could be on the hump, they could be in the feeding platform, they could be out there on the point. I don't know that. You know, so the trick is check all of it. Now, it doesn't mean you got to change presentations. I mean, if you're using cut bait, that's fine. Just stay with it, you know, but put that bait, try to present, like I said earlier. Don't focus on catching. Focus on presenting to as many fish as you can on good structures. And if you're worried about big fish, I know there's a lot of guys out there that they want big fish, and that's perfect. But structures like this will hold big fish more often than a lesser structure. It's just the way it is. Just like a big buck deer. If you find where the big buck deer is, you're going to find water close. You're going to find the cornfield close. You're going to find heavy cover close. You're going to find those close, obviously. But, you know, you're going to have everything right there. He may have to travel a half mile, but he knows where it is. And he's going to come back to those elements. Fish are the same way. Okay? Okay, Roger, we can go on. I'll try to get through this a little quicker for you.
No, you're fine.
All right. All species of fish have 2 habits that you need to rely on. And we went through them a little bit before. This is some of the fish. Oh, these are my girls. Yeah, they know how to do it. They do. They're pretty good. They're dangerous. The fish are afraid of them. They have their preferences for elements in the body of water, and they have preferences for their forage. If you can focus on that and put these structures together, and the nice thing to do nowadays, and here's a perk for the electronics. Nowadays, I pre-fish at home. I can pull up my maps. I can pull up all kinds of things. I can tell where the weed beds are going to start. That water depth, I can tell where there's trees. I can tell where there's incoming water. I can tell where there's points and channels and old roads. I can pick structures before I ever leave my house, you know, and I like doing that. And that's the way you should. When we were talking about preparation, you really need to prep. It makes better decisions for you on the water. The more information you have, the better decision you're going to make. Okay, we're going to go into a couple of species here, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, just that's fine. Just real quick, just elements. Like for walleyes, wind-blown points, current break, just for examples. Main lake humps, rock piles, road beds, weed lines, normal. But what separates it is what are you using for your presentation. That will separate. All of those will hold crappies and perch and everything else. But if you make the presentation for the walleyes, you separate it. Any fish, any water. And we'll go to one more here. Muskie northern pike. If you're going to notice, there's a lot of things that are the same, the weed lines, right? But now in the muskies and northerns, I'm going to go main lake points, and the corners or shoulders of bays. And now I've caught not a lot of blue cats, but when I've used to fish South Carolina down there at Santa Cooper, we used to just knock them dead on the shoulder of the bays, where the comes out almost like 2 points drifting from corner to corner. And on the drop where the bay drops into the main lake, there you're putting elements together again. You got your 2 points, you got your shallow feeding platform, you got the drop into the main lake. In fact, I broke an elbow on one of those. So I did. That was a bad one. We were fishing. They had a 36 hour tournament down there. And we were about, 28 hours into it. And I hooked up on a fish on a bay mouth, and I was tired, obviously, beat dead. And I laid my arm down on the edge of the boat, and the fish took off and hyperextended it and broke the edge off my elbow. I woke up throwing up in the bottom of the boat. Rod's gone, fish is gone.
Oh,
Partner thought I was dying. So that was a bad ending to that one. But
that does sound fun.
Don't let a fish get leverage on you like that. All right, let's see. Next one, I think we're about up for time. Channel cats. Here's some differences. Main flow current seams, wind blown points, log jams, windy points. Focus on the incoming side on the wind, bay mouths, channels, timber, weed lights. See, it all works, but for channels, you're going to use a different presentation and a different forage, different bait. It's just pretty simple. And we'll go to one more, the flathead. This is my favorite fish, by the way. Yeah, this is my favorite one. I lose a lot of sleep, literally, trying to chase these. Yeah, wood elements, current seams, shallow. I'm going to do a seminar for you guys on flatheads, shallow feeding platforms. Okay, just one real quickie for flatheads. My beliefs, and I've caught a bunch of these big fish. I don't worry about depth. I worry completely about the structure I'm fishing and what it's doing. Okay, I've caught fish that fish isn't that big in that picture. Last year I took it was about a 44, 45 out of 2.5 foot water between a bridge pillar and the shore, and had a bunch of pile up in front of it, and the current had blown a seam right through the middle of that thing. But that fish was sitting there. When he hit, I saw him he surfaced. He swirled when he hit the bait. That's how shallow it was. And it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So anyway, and I think we got one more here, I believe. Whoops. Oh yeah. Okay. Come on, let go. There we go. Okay, what do they do? For some of the new people, which we can't forget them, what does current do?
Yeah.
Current is the major positioning element in a body of water. It will position bait fish, it will position night crawlers that are being washed in, and that positions in turn every predator in the lake is going to either sitting off the mouth of an incoming or using current to position or bring food to it. You got to pay attention to current. Wind creates current. People don't think about it this way. Just like when I talked about the wind blowing between those two islands up on Lake Vermilion, there was a current blowing bait fish around the shoulders of those islands. Basically, I'm also going to say one thing about wind, though. Everybody says where the wind is coming in. That's not necessarily true, guys. I look at weather for about 3 days in front of my trip. Let's just say I have a west wind for 2 days or northwest wind for 2 days. Okay, pretty good, right, on a lake. So that would push algae and shrimp, freshwater shrimp, water bugs, minnows, everything to the southeast corner. Okay, so that kind of gives you a starting point. However, a lot of people, the day you go fishing, all right, I'm going to try to back this up. You got 2 days of northwest wind prior, okay? The day you're fishing, we'll just say an east wind, so you think I got to go to the west side. That's not right. It takes at least 24 to 48 hours for wind to move fish. If you have a prevailing wind from one direction, pay attention to that. If that's prior to your trip, regardless of the direction of the wind the day you go fishing, okay? Because and overnight, it will not push those fish away from that, like in this case, the southeast corner, okay? You got to pay attention a little bit to that. Don't fish the weather today, fish it for the last 2 or 3 days. At least that's my advice.
That's good.
Docks offer cover, shade, and all that good stuff. Cluster elements include rows of docks, just like we talked about, riprap, rock shorelines. Anything that's big and covers ground is a cluster element, but you want it to combine, okay? They'll hold fish, but they won't concentrate them. And you can look like that standing timber bay. You can spend all day fishing that bay to try to catch 2 or 3 fish. If you got another element to focus on where it connects to that, the fish are going to be there for you. All right, next one, and we're done. What am I supposed to do with all this? Well, You can choose to do as much as you want or as little as you want, you know, obviously. But I'm just going to tell you, as a friend and a fisherman, the more you do on this, the more information you gather, the better decisions you're going to make on the water. It's just that simple. That's the truth of it. And, you know, it doesn't take that long to just think it out. It just doesn't. Gather your intel before you go. Okay, so when you hit the water, you know where you're going, you know what you're after, and you got the equipment with you to do it right. So you have a good day. Okay, and that's about it. Adjust your depth. Oh, I got to do this. 5 minutes here. You got to adjust your depth. You got to adjust your depth, guys. Say you start out mid-lake. Okay, if I don't know where the fish are, no one has said.
Hey, Ted, we just lost your audio somehow. There it is.
There you are. Okay. If you start out, I always go shallow before I go deep. Am I losing you again? Sorry. I always go shallow before I go deep. A lot of the deep water, the lakes, just does not have the forage. I mean, obviously there's times it's deep water, shad and all this and that, but I mean, there's no weed lines. There's just, you know, there's a lot of vacant water. There's always shallow and mid-depth fish. Always. I don't care what species you're after. The aggressive fish are going to be up where the forage is. And I will end it at that. I don't know why I'm losing volume. I don't know if I have you or not, Ryder.
I can hear you, buddy. Your volume did go down some, but I'm not sure why.
Okay. All right. Well, that's about it. Focus on presenting to more fish. On the next one, less worry about catching fish. That's just the way that works.
There you go.
And that's it. And I appreciate everybody for checking in.
That was a mouthful, man. Appreciate it. Guys, I did catch some questions coming through the chat as we went along. We'll wait till next week and we'll kick off with some of those questions. A lot of great information, Ted. The wind, I know that I did a little piece a while back about plankton and the effects of plankton, and thinking about the wind, like you just said, 2 days in advance, 3 days in advance to think about where the algae and the bait fish are all going to be. That's a big deal. I seen, I think it was 2 stands in here, said something about just that relation to the structure, what structure and making it understandable. Like you said, you take a window out of a house and lay it out in the field. It's not structure. It's just a window. Just like when we're scanning the bottom, we see a stick. It's not a stick, but if we see a huge pile of logs on the bottom, that's different. And it sounds like we're breaking up. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not sure.
Roger Tron, I'm saying. So, well, we'll wrap things up here. Looks like we're running into some technical problems anyway. But again, Ted, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Thank you, everybody, hanging out here and chat with us. Appreciate you guys being here. Be here next Tuesday night. Same cat time, same cat channel. We'll catch you next time. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.